This is the Microsoft Cloud Show, episode 130, where I talk to Microsoft's Adam Hall about information security in a cloud world. Recorded live, May 17, 2016. Welcome to the Microsoft Cloud Show, the only place to stay up to date on everything going on in the Microsoft Cloud world, including Windows Azure, Office 365, SharePoint, Exchange, Lync, and related technologies. Just the information, no marketing, no BS. I'm Chris Johnson.
And I'm Andrew Cole.
And we're just two dudes telling you how we see it. The Microsoft Cloud Show is sponsored by valid.nl. Valid is a Microsoft Gold partner whose mission is to enable its customers to excel in their business through the innovative use of technology. Valid is always on the lookout for consultants, architects, and engineers. Do you know Azure, BI, and Analytics, .NET, Office 365, or SharePoint? Look them up on valid.nl. All right, well, today's show is just brought to you by Chris. AC is off sunning himself in beautiful Mexico with his lovely wife, and he's taking a well-deserved break. So you're just stuck with me this week. So what we thought we'd do is we'd sit down with a good friend of mine, Adam Hall from Microsoft, and talk about data security in the cloud, and in particular, the area that Adam works on around information protection and document security and so forth. Adam's been a long-time good friend of mine, a fellow Kiwi. We used to work at Microsoft together back in New Zealand, actually, and then over here in the States when I was working there. And he knows a ton of stuff in the space. He's worked in it for a long time. He also spent some time at Google working on the Google Cloud platform. So he's just an all-around nice guy and really interesting fellow to talk to. The reason why I thought this topic was really interesting is Microsoft do a lot in this space that people are just not aware of. And with the rise of cloud computing and the information people are storing in the cloud and documents and so forth, and emails and things like that, now more than ever, sensitive information needs to be protected and looked after. And it's just not something people typically think as much about as I think they should, or they just don't realize that they often will have tools at their disposal that they can use today that, say, Microsoft and Office 365 give them, and they're just not aware of that stuff. So we thought we'd sit down with Adam and talk about what is on offer from Microsoft in this space and what they're doing with a couple of acquisitions. So let's roll that interview. Okay, well, welcome Adam to the show. Adam is a customer success lead in the information protection engineering team at Microsoft, a fellow Kiwi, an avid cycler, and previously at Microsoft and Google. So welcome Adam to the show.
Thank you, Chris. Good to be here.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what you do at Microsoft.
So I lead what we call a customer success team. These have cropped up all around engineering as we've moved to cloud services. And basically I run a team of people that are here to help customers adopt and use our cloud services. So specifically my team looks at information protection, which is bringing together what we have previously called rights management services, protecting information. And we have a new acquisition in the family, Secure Islands. And so my team are helping customers adopt and use those two technologies.
Gotcha. So if a Microsoft customer came along and wanted to get on board, then I guess of a particular size and importance, they give you guys a call and you help them out?
Pretty much that's the way it works. I've got team members who are all around the world. We are adding people all the time. There's lots of people over in the Europe time zone, people in the American time zone, pretty shortly adding Japan and the APAC region, very close to our hearts, obviously. And pretty much we engage with fairly large customers typically, although not always, and go in, help them think about what does the technology do, what are the things they need to think about. It's a non-billable service, shall we say, so we don't take the customer all the way, but we make sure that they get going, they get started, they understand what it does, what they want to do, the use cases, and really just give them that kickstart into the technology.
So if they wanted to get hold of you, what product do they have to go buy first?
That's a great question. There's always a licensing question with Microsoft, isn't it? All right, so we sell in a couple of different ways. You can buy today rights management services as a single product. Relatively speaking, that's a small SKU for us. Most people are buying the Enterprise Mobility Suite, EMS.
I see. Gotcha.
We are part of the EMS suite. So basically, when you buy EMS, you get Intune for management, you get Azure AD Premium, you get Rights Management Premium, and you get ATA. And so basically, we're part of the EMS family.
Excellent. I see. Okay. So for all of those listening, if you're in large customers and you want to keep track of sensitive data and make sure it doesn't walk about, then it sounds like Adam's team is the right one to go talk to.
Absolutely. We're here to help people get going.
I was just going to say, so for those who don't know what information rights management is and what it does and what sort of keeping track of sensitive data entails, can we dive into a quick sort of backgrounder for those folks on like what problem are you solving and what sort of issues is it designed to combat?
Yeah, I think if you take it from the top level and think about you're working on some document. Let's take a really simple scenario. You're working on a document and it's sensitive information. Two easy examples that are worth exploring. One is financial results. Super secret information. You're a public company. You're putting together your financial information. How well did we do? Do we make our numbers? What are we going to announce? Super secret. Even within a company such as Microsoft, nobody knows what our results are until they get publicly announced.
Yeah.
How do you control who can see that? What happens if someone does the old Outlook oops and the autocomplete sends to the wrong person, for example, right?
Gotcha.
So what we do is say, tag that document as secret, just for using whatever word you want. Let's use the word secret. We tag the document as secret, and we use identity-bound access to the document. Chris can open this document. Adam cannot open this document. We authenticate the user, and we say, what can you do? The financial controller might have full rights. They can do whatever they want because it's their information. If I stumble across that document, I can't even open it. And so therefore, you can keep control of your information. In the case of financial results, a nice easy one. 4:59, 5 people in the world know what's in it. 5 o'clock, everyone in the world can know because we've now published it out.
Gotcha.
And so the whole idea is to keep control of information to only the people that you want to see it and control what they can do with it. We prevent things like copying and pasting. We can stop people taking screenshots on platforms that we control. We can stop people being able to print it, forward it, that kind of thing. And so that's what we've had for a long time with rights management since 2003. Server 2003 was the first iteration that it really went out.
Yeah, I remember that when I was at Microsoft many years ago and would be able to send emails and click a little button and say, hey, this should only be openable by these certain people, and you can't forward it or reply to it necessarily or print it or take a screenshot or what have you. I guess that's one sort of use case. What sort of other apps does this stuff show up in, and where will people see it today?
Yeah, so there's quite an ecosystem there. So Microsoft as a first party, we support it inside Office. When you use SharePoint Online, you'll see a button that says Enable IRM. So you can use it with SharePoint Online. You can use it with Exchange Online, plug it into things like the DLP rules, plug it into the ability to send protected emails. Email is another great use case, shutting down reply all storms, the bedlams and so on. There are two default policies that are really, really handy. One is do not forward, and the other one is do not reply all. And so when things get out of control, it's a good way to...
Me too. +1.
Yeah,
me too.
+1, yeah. Take me off this list. Yeah, we've all seen these ones.
Oh, dear.
So it's inside all of the Microsoft first-party apps, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online. We also have the mobile client, so Office for mobile. Office for iOS has it today, Office for Android coming very shortly. And then we have third-party ecosystem. So by way of example, we provide an SDK and an API set so that anybody can embed this into their own applications. We have industries, automotive industry, for example, car parts specifications, very sensitive things that no one wants to give away their IP. And we have partners who provide wrappers for things like SAP. Data inside SAP is really identity bound. What you can do inside SAP, no problem. Guess what the number one tool is for using with SAP? Excel.
Yeah, kiss goodbye to your sensitive financial data.
Someone goes into SAP and says export. Now what have you got? An unprotected Excel document.
Gotcha.
They provide an add-on that allows you to wrap SAP and say, well, when that data exports out, it creates a rights-protected Excel document. Now you can feel a little more comfortable about, well, even if someone gets that, they can't open it because it's bound to the person that did the export.
I see. So this is really the scenario, or the base level sort of scenario is you got some sensitive data in typically an unsecured document or location or what have you, and somebody goes walkabouts on their laptop or accidentally hits the forward button or whatever, and you still keep control even when that piece of information has gone elsewhere.
Correct. There's an encryption wrapper around the outside of the file. So think of it in terms of something like a Malteser, right? It's got the nice gooey inside and it's got the chocolate out. We put another wrapper around the outside. And as you hit the outside, we say, who are you? And we make you log in and authenticate. That includes, like for Azure AD Premium, for example, you have to authenticate and then do an MFA call, for example.
Gotcha.
So it's like, oh, yes, you're Chris, but prove you're Chris. Once you get past the first step, it's like, all right, you're Chris, you've proven you're Chris, now what are you allowed to do? And the apps provide lockdown to say, well, the policy says you can't print. Literally, the print button is grayed out. You just can't do it.
Gotcha.
So that's the kind of identity-bound and data protection that we provide.
So I'm guessing the only thing left is people taking photos of their screen.
Correct. We're quite open about the fact that you're not going to stop cell phones taking photos of screens. There's not much we can do about that. And second of all, although it doesn't stop the problem, you've also moved from a legal liability point of view into someone has now deliberately tried to circumvent your policy.
I see. Gotcha. So there's a difference.
There's no such thing as, oops, I didn't mean to take a photo of the screen with my phone. Like,
I see.
That doesn't fly.
Yeah, I guess that there is the oops, I forwarded it to a journalist, but I guess that's sort of defendable. You might talk with a journalist regularly if you're in PR or something like that.
You might be able to pull that one off if you're lucky.
Getting the news around your finances ready to go live, and I sent it to Adam Hall, the journalist, as opposed to Adam Hall, the legal guy or something. So
do that with a photo. Yeah, that doesn't fly anymore. No, you took your phone out and took a photo of the screen and then sent that photo. Yeah,
that's a little less defendable. Gotcha. So how do you think the cloud has changed this over the last few years? Because obviously, we've been living in the internet age for 10 or 15 years properly now. But with more and more companies going to the cloud, how have you seen this landscape change with regards to, data sensitivity and protection as customers move to the cloud?
I think there's a couple of things that have happened. One is as data has traveled more, the problems got harder. So go back 7 years, pre-iPhone, right? How much data was in locations where you didn't even know it was there? There was no Dropbox. Live Mesh was in its infancy kind of thing. Box didn't exist. USB drives were expensive. You had a corporate laptop and you had a corporate desktop. And that's pretty much where things were. Known entities. You knew where your data was.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2016, you have no idea where your stuff is. Is it on a USB key? Is it on a mobile phone, an Android, an iOS device, a Windows phone? It doesn't really matter. Is it sitting in Box, Dropbox, OneDrive for Business, SharePoint Online? Where is your data? The very first question that basically scares the crap out of most CISOs, security officers and so on is, tell me where your secret data is. And they're like, I don't
everywhere.
know. Yes, the answer is yes. And we're like, great. So what we do is help you control it. Because typically there's 3 layers to where data is. There's the inner sanctum, inside a known location where you tightly control. File server, SharePoint library, DMS system, whatever it might be. You know it, you control it. You feel pretty good about that being a nice dark shade of green. Then you've got a sort of a slightly bigger ring around that, which is more opaque, which is a managed device. So it's managed with an Intune or an AirWatch or whatever the case may be. It's somewhere where you don't fully control, but you have an element of control. You can bomb the device. You can block access to it. You require PIN codes, authentication. Then you've got the dirty yellow circle around the outside, which is stuff you don't know. And that's really where we play. And so what has changed is that outer yellow ring has got bigger and bigger. As more devices have come along, more cloud services have come along, data is traveling far more than it ever did before, and so on. And so what we've done from a rights management point of view is we've had AD RMS, Active Directory Rights Management, since 2003. Built into Windows Server, on premises. It's basically Windows and Office only. As we've gone forward, that's become harder and harder to actually manage and use. It didn't do mobile devices. Internet connectivity was hard. B2B sharing was incredibly difficult to set up. With Azure RMS and the cloud services, we suddenly go, well, now we're in the cloud. It's easy for mobile devices to connect. We can have a cloud entry point, an API set, an SDK set. We can provide REST entrances and so on to all the information. And so moving to the cloud, whilst it's made it harder from a data management point of view, it's made it a lot easier from providing a service to help people get under control.
Gotcha. You bring up an interesting scenario there around Dropbox, right? Because I think, as you said, there's lots of people using Dropbox at work, whether or not or OneDrive Consumer, for example, or Google Drive, or, you name your storage location, whether or not their company allow it or not. And so it sounds like, if you had a protected document and you stuffed it into Dropbox or Google Drive or what have you, that it would stay protected.
Correct.
And if somebody got access to it, or when you went home or what have you, that sensitive data is you're still required to log in and authenticate to get into the document, which, so it obviously travels with the doc.
Yeah, the way that we explain that is that it's data bound and it's identity bound. So it doesn't matter where it is. The protection and the policy goes with the file. So it doesn't matter where you put that file. As soon as you try and access it, it's going to click in and go, hey, I'm a protected file and you need to authenticate and so on. Now, the downside of that, and it's a very real one, is then, of course, you need something that respects that and you need something that can open it because it's a different format. If you create a protected Word document, well, then OpenOffice or something can't open that. That's a reality.
Gotcha.
It's the sliding scale between security and usability, like pick one.
Yes.
There's not even sometimes there's a middle ground, but normally it's pick one. And so we're doing our best to make it as easy as possible. But yes, there is an overhead and there's a slight barrier to it. What we also say, though, is that a very small percentage of data inside most companies is genuinely secret. Emails about people going to lunch and documents that have publicly available information. You don't need to protect those. You want to know where they are. But what's going to happen if it ends up on the front page of Bing or Yahoo or Google News or whatever news site you look at? What's the worst that can happen? Well, there's a small part which is existential. It's toxic data. If it gets out, all hell breaks loose and it's really bad, like financial results, IP, that kind of thing. Then there's a realm of, well, it might be painful, embarrassing, but, life goes on. And then there's the don't give a rat's kind of thing of, I don't care, like we met for lunch, so what? And so what we say is categorize and classify your data, label it so that you know what it is, and then make a decision about whether you protect it or not.
Gotcha. Yeah, and this is, as you know, I've worked in SharePoint a long time, and categorization and classification of data and the metadata around documents and things is a big part of enterprise content management, especially around unstructured document data. And it's a bit of a sticking point because it's, on the one hand, you could make people enter a whole lot of metadata about documents, which takes time and people get pissed off at that. Or you could ask them nothing about it and then you've got nothing to go on and know what's in there. So I know Microsoft are doing some stuff in this area to help make this better around things like auto classification and things like that. So, and you've made some acquisitions in this space recently, as I understand it. So are you able to go into a little bit of detail about that and what the plans for the space are?
Yeah, sure. So yes, we made an acquisition. We purchased Secure Islands towards the end of last year. I think it closed in October 2015. So we're hard at work integrating that and rights management together. And we talk about classification, labeling, and protection. We've had protection with rights management since 2003, but it was hard to use, in terms of the user had to click 6 buttons and then choose a template. Not particularly helpful. Most people didn't understand what to do. It was very end-user driven, and the onus was on, and responsibility was on the end user to make the decision.
Gotcha.
Secure Islands gives us classification and labeling. Classification being the ability to either detect or manually enforce the type of information it is, and labeling being the persistent metadata on a document to know what it is. So as it goes past a DLP system or it goes out and a gateway control, it can take a look at that label and make a smart decision. What we've done is Secure Islands has a very nice end-user experience. It has a click-button, simple way of doing rights management. So the end user, instead of going file, info, oh, look, I've got a bunch of rights management templates, I don't know which one to pick. It says this information is internal, public, secret, confidential, only for my team, for all organization. Nice, simple, click one, and away we go. And basically what that does is it moves it into the end user business language, and it allows the business to say, there are certain types of information that we automatically want to make that decision for the user. Things like PII information, things like maybe project names, code words, maybe even location. It's on this file share, it's in this document library. Based on that, this is the decision we're making, we're done. The user has no chance to change anything. At the other end of the scale, you've got complete manual classification, which is, well, you created a new document, click a button. And you can enforce a requirement to click at least one button so that you're like, this is my own personal information, ignore it, versus this is internal only. You can require someone to select one. You can set a default one so that by default everything's classified with something. And you can also enforce justifications. So if I create a document and it's tagged as secret, and then I want to change that to public, you can require the user to enter a reason why they're changing it. And that could be a free-form field to just type an explanation. It could be a drop-down button and so on. What that does is two things. One, it tells the user, we're watching you, and if you change this, we're going to log it. And so any nefarious activity that's going on is like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do this because now there's an audit trail. Second of all, if it's a business justification, of course they're going to do it. There's no problem with that, and away they go. But you've got a record of the fact that someone changed it.
Gotcha.
What we want to work on in the future, and we don't have this today, but we certainly acknowledge we need to, is workflow. And so you imagine the scenario of Chris creates a secret document, and I have no access to it. Again, you mail it to me. What am I going to do? Go back and say, hey, Chris, I can't open the document? Or as I open the document, it says, you don't have access. Would you like to request access? And it sends you a note saying, hey, you shared it with Adam. Would you like to give him permission and so on? I think there's a great requirement from customers to have that workflow behind document classification and labeling and protection, simply because not all scenarios can be answered up front.
Right. Well, it sounds like, the technology's been here for a number of years. It's just not been that accessible to users. And you guys are really focusing on making the end user make really simple choices to make the right decision. Because as we all know, if they're presented with complex choices, either they just won't bother doing it at all, or they'll end up getting it wrong.
Correct.
So I think this will make things a whole lot easier for people and easier for the business, I'm imagining, if they get it right as well. So
correct. It's that blend of, and this is what our team spend a lot of time doing, is that blend of what's going to be automatic and enforced all the way down to what's manual user decision point, helping customers understand, how do you think about that? How do you identify where your information is? What really matters to you? What are the ways that if we go 6 to 12 months down the line, what do you want to be able to know? What do you want to be able to see? When you run a report, what do you expect to see on the screen? Because if you don't design to deliver that, then you'll never do it properly. And so we spend a lot of our time just helping customers understand, this is what you can do. How would you like it to work in your case?
Gotcha.
And, we are working on providing customers with a lot of guidance. So, hey, you're in the financial industry. This is the requirements that are on you. This is the regulatory and compliance rules that apply to you. Oh, you're in country X. You've got these laws. Now, helping customers understand, I've got to adhere to these. And for customers, this is a very real problem, because it's not just, I might get it wrong. It's, I could go to jail. I could be fined. Like, it's serious things where you can be found guilty of negligence and so on for not doing this properly in some countries. And so it's like, you've got to do this properly. You can't just make this up. You actually got laws on you, and as an executive, you need to do the right thing, and you need to have business rules and policies and so on.
Gotcha. So if I was a sort of a reasonably large business and not doing any of this stuff today, what does a typical approach to rollout look like, sort of from a very high-level phased approach? Like, what are some of the upfront work I need to do? What do you ask for when you come along and start working with the customer?
So there's a couple of high-level pieces of guidance we always give, which is pick a small number of use case scenarios and go with them first. The place where we see customers fail is when they try and eat the elephant. Because if you try and do everything at once, you either never start or you never finish. Whereas if you say, okay, I want to target documents that finance is working with, or documents that HR is working with, I want to target email, I want to target whatever it might be. What are the 3 scenarios that are really critical that you get going today? Great, let's help you understand that. Then what we do is say, so what are the rules around that? Who are the people that you need to target? What are the policies? Are you talking automatic rules? Are you talking justifications? Are you talking defaults? How do you want this to work? In words. Then we show them how to configure that in the technology, which is the end state, and how to deploy, how to make sure that you got the prerequisites in place. Do you want mobile device support? Is this on-prem? Is it hybrid? Is it cloud? All the architectural stuff that comes into it to get going. And then how to manage and maintain it on the way through. Once you've got all this in place, great. is there a business requirement to review this on a regular basis? What happens when rule number 4 comes along and you've only got 3? Making sure that you don't have issues with that.
Gotcha. I see. Nice. So I go through all of this, I define all my rules and my rollout plan and all that sort of stuff. We talked about Outlook and Office being a couple of use cases. Where are some of the places that people will see this crop up? So I think there's stuff in SharePoint as well, right? So say I've got a document in a team site, in a document library, and I turn on information protection or rights management on that document library. When I download that document, those permissions get applied to it. Is that right? And are there any other sort of major areas people will see this show up?
Yeah, and I think this is where, as an acquisition, we've got some work to do to integrate. So we're open about the fact that, yes, we have some existing stuff that we need to work through. You've got Exchange Online for mailboxes, for email. You've got SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business. They all have the ability to either just respect a rights managed blob coming in which case it just looks at it and says, well, I don't know what that is, I'm going to ignore it. Or you can turn on the rights protected document libraries. That's a good scenario when you've got homogeneous data. And I think it's one of the learnings that we have is not all data is equal and not all SharePoint libraries are equal. And it's a very rare case where a one-size-fits-all applies. There's not many people that can say, yes, every document in my OneDrive for Business should be protected and encrypted. Most of it is, some of it's fine. It's my CV, it's just my general workings stuff. And then I've got some sensitive stuff, that should be protected. And so I think as we move forward, Microsoft as a company needs to work on, and this is what we're doing is, okay, document level, library level, integration with SharePoint and Exchange and so on. It's fair to say that there's a little bit of work to do there, a little bit of vision and planning, a little bit of engineering work, education. The good news is that we've got everything we need. It's just going to take us a little bit of time to bring those all into a nice, consumable box.
Yeah, gotcha.
But I feel good that we have all the right pieces of the jigsaw puzzle, and now our challenge is to put them together and help customers use it.
Gotcha. I'm not sure if this is specific to Microsoft or not, but I don't see a lot of other players in their cloud talking about this stuff. Is this something that Microsoft's much more focused on than other partners or other cloud players, or is this something others are focusing on as well? I mean, I know I'm asking a Microsoft guy for this, right? You guys have probably got the best stuff out there, no doubt, but is anybody else thinking about this stuff in the industry?
It's one of the reasons, you mentioned I went to Google and I've come back, and one of the reasons I came back into this space is that I genuinely believe that we're ahead of where others are. We've got the breadth of portfolio, and I don't think anyone else is really putting the focus on it that we are. I certainly haven't seen it. There's little scatterings here and there, and maybe there's the odd feature checkbox in a cloud service from time to time. I don't think anyone else in the industry is focused on it in the breadth way that we're looking at it from. How do we do it at the device level, the document level, the library level, the storage level, the network level, the cloud level? It's everywhere. And so it's one of the things that excites me about the information protection story at Microsoft is the fact that it's top to bottom, left to right. It's inherent everywhere. And I've yet to come across anyone else that seems to have the same focus that we do on it. Even as a Microsoft employee, there's no bravado in that. It's that I look around the industry and it's just not there.
Right.
It's not the focus area.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to be focused on MDM and mobile device management, but don't seem to have sort of taken the next step forward around the content specifically. Interesting.
I think that's an evolutionary step, I think, is that just like desktop management many years ago, the first thing you took control of was the hardware, and then you took control of the operating system, then you took control of the applications, and then by that point in time, PCs were moving into mobile devices, which had its own challenges. I think the cloud, the first step was, does it make sense? Is it price performant? Does it scale? What can you do that you can't do somewhere else? Then it opened up other challenges and so on. And I think that data sovereignty, data protection, sharing securely between businesses. In days gone by, you could rely on information going backwards and forwards and not having to worry about the bad guy. With the cloud and the growth of the internet and the population base around the world being on the internet, quote unquote, the targets are bigger. And so the bad guys are bigger. You've got the ransomware problem. You've got people hacking other companies. There's now a business of bad guy who make money stealing information. It's always been there, but in the past it's been like you had to physically break into a building and steal paper. James Bond style. Now you just go and hack a website and you can get companies' information. It's
Right.
just the shift that has happened over the last 10, 15 years, and we're really starting to feel it now.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. So what do you think one simple thing that you see customers or people doing every day that if you could just sit them down and talk to them, you'd be like, you should just try this one simple thing and you'd be a whole lot more secure? Is there something people that you just see all the time, people doing, that you're just like, oh, really?
I think there's a couple that I would do, and they're quite different. The first is from a document point of view. I see people sharing information that makes me shudder, that you just emailed that document to an external person and it contains stuff that, like, what would happen if that went somewhere you didn't want, And they're like, well, I only emailed it to Bob. I'm like, okay, let me help. Let me help you understand how the internet works in terms of so that document just bounced through a number of different routers and a number of different physical pipes as well as logical ones. It ended up in someone's mailbox. It's now sitting there where administrators can look at it and so on. You don't know who looked at that document. The minute you hit send, you lost all control. It's basically like taking a valuable thing outside of your house, randomly driving to another suburb and putting it on the side of the street and going, no one will steal it.
Yeah.
Well,
it's almost like putting it on a bus, actually.
Exactly.
And letting somebody else drive it there, because you've got no idea who else is grabbing it while it's on the bus, right?
Correct. And so I think it's really helping people understand to think about what are they sharing and where is that actually going. I think there's an inherent trust in the internet, quote unquote, that isn't really warranted. I think that's the main one. From a corporate point of view, the biggest impact that we have is having that conversation around what type of information have you got and what really matters to you. It's an eye-opening experience for a lot of customers to just understand that not all their data is the same. I've got stuff that's really important, I've got stuff that's kind of important, and I've got stuff that, frankly, I don't care whether I have that or not. It makes no difference to the running of my business. And even just going through that process is just a huge impact to a lot of people. Yeah,
no, that makes sense. So where can people learn more? Like, if I was completely new to this and wanting to find out, hey, I'm a 365 customer and I want to do some of this stuff, where should they go to find out, what Microsoft offers in this space and what their next steps are?
So I think there's three places that I would suggest. One is Microsoft.com/RMS. There's a wealth of information there, both technical and not.
RMS?
RMS, Rights Management Services, what that stands for.
Gotcha. Okay.
We'll update that, but that's what it is today. There is a Yammer site where you can engage not only with other people that do this kind of stuff, but also we participate in that as well. And that is aka.ms/askipteam, ASKIPTEAM.
Gotcha.
And if you want to email my team, you can send a mail to askipteam@microsoft.com. And I have dedicated people who monitor that mailbox, respond to questions, and help people get stuff. So if you want to read stuff, go to the web. If you want to engage with us, go to Yammer. And if you just want to mail us in a fire and forget way, then send us an email.
Excellent. Oh, that's really good. I hope people have taken something away from this chat and are either A, completely freaked out that they've got all the sensitive information that they need to start doing something about, or B, kind of more inspired to get around to that project to make sure that they're not leaking data using some really simple tools that Microsoft provide. So I guess over the next sort of 3-6 months, where should people look for news about what your team is working on and information in the space? Is there a particular blog that they should look at or things like that?
I would keep track of two blogs. One is the Office blog itself. We do a lot of work with the Office team.
Gotcha.
And so they continue to communicate how we're lighting things up in their world. And then we have our own site, which is blogs.technic.com/RMS, which is where our team posts. If you're a Twitter fan, you can follow the RMS guy, which is a handle that our team runs where we post out links to blogs and useful things as well. So many different ways of talking to us in the way that best suits you.
Nice. Well, thanks again for your time today. I hope people have taken something away from this and go and learn more. Is there any sort of final takeaways you'd like to leave with the listeners?
I just want to say thank you for having me on the show. It's been great. You've got many different ways of engaging with us. We're here to help, and good luck.
Cheers. If you have a question for us, go to microsoftcloudshow.com/questions, where you can submit it as text or record it as a WAV or MP3 and provide a link so we can play your question on the show. You can subscribe to us in iTunes by searching for Microsoft Cloud Show or via RSS at microsoftcloudshow.com, where you'll also find a full transcript and show notes of each episode. You can also find us on Facebook searching for Microsoft Cloud Show or on Twitter at MS Cloud Show. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.